Breaking Free. Women who survived the unthinkable in war takes you into the heart of World War II's most unimaginable battles, where women fought for survival in the darkest corners of enemy prison camps. These unsung heroes, who endured unimaginable pain, found strength in each other, creating a bond of sisterhood and resistance that defied the enemy's brutality. Their survival stories are not just about escaping captivity. They are about the resilience of the human spirit, the courage to resist, and the unbreakable will to fight back against the forces that sought to erase them. In this documentary, we uncover the untold stories of women who faced the unthinkable and survived. Their stories, long forgotten by history, have come to light, showing the world the true meaning of strength and resilience. From the brutal conditions of World War II's most notorious prison camps, to the secret rebellions that took place within, these women showed the world what it means to fight for freedom, for hope, and for a future that seemed out of reach. This documentary honors the legacy of those who were lost in the shadows of history. Their courage was not only the key to their own survival, but also the spark that ignited resistance movements across occupied territories. Join us as we dive into the forgotten stories of women POWs who refused to surrender and fought to the very end. The world was plunged into darkness as war tore through the fabric of civilization. But even amid the chaos, there were those whose stories remained hidden, buried beneath the rubble of history. Women, who had once lived quiet lives, found themselves thrust into the most unimaginable circumstances. The war took everything from them: their homes, their families, their sense of security, but it could not take their will to survive. These were the women who, in the darkest corners of the earth, found the strength to endure, to resist, and to break free from the unthinkable. Their stories are not the ones you hear often, not the ones sung by the soldiers or glorified by victory. Yet their courage, their resilience, and their ultimate triumph would leave a mark on history far deeper than most could ever understand. Captured by the enemy, imprisoned in the harshest of conditions, and faced with unimaginable brutality, they had only one thing left: their spirits. Even as they were torn from their homes and thrust into the heart of war's chaos, these women never gave up. They may have been bound by chains, surrounded by barbed wire, and trapped in the darkness of enemy camps, but their spirits soared higher than the fences that sought to contain them. It was the will to survive, to break free from the nightmare that had swallowed their world, that kept them going, even when everything around them seemed to crumble. But what happened next changed everything. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about fighting back, reclaiming their dignity, and carving a path through the darkness. The sound of boots marching across gravel, the clanking of metal doors, and the harsh orders shouted by faceless guards filled the air in the prison camps. But underneath it all, there was a sound far more powerful than unbreakable determination. These women, though imprisoned, were not broken. Their hearts beat not for defeat, but for victory. They were the ones who turned their suffering into a weapon, who transformed the pain into purpose, and who, when faced with the unspeakable, still found ways to resist. Yet she never imagined this moment would reshape her destiny. In the depths of captivity, she found a strength she never knew she had. The whispers of defiance spread like wildfire, from one woman to the next, from one prisoner to the next, until it became a movement, quiet yet fierce, that no force could extinguish. These women had been pushed to the edge of human endurance. They had witnessed things that no one should ever have to see. The smell of death lingered in the air like smoke. The cries of the lost filled the silence of the night, and the cold so cold it could freeze your very soul was a constant companion. But despite all this, te survived. Every moment was an act of defiance. The bonds of sisterhood, forged in the darkest of places, became their strength. They shared their rations, passed along information in hushed voices, and provided the courage each woman needed to face another day. They didn't just survive, they fought back, and then something no one expected. They escaped. In the dead of night, in the midst of the guards' watchful eyes and the looming walls, these women found a way to break free. They took their fate into their own hands, running through the darkness, through the cold, through the fear, toward the one thing that had kept them alive: freedom. But freedom did not come easy. Behind them, the prison gates that had held them captive still stood, waiting to reclaim them. The air was thick with tension, the earth beneath their feet trembling with the weight of their decision. They knew the risks. If they were caught, their lives would be forfeit. But they moved anyway, step by step, fueled by the belief that they had nothing left to lose. Behind these ruins, a secret waited. A secret that would not only change their lives, but would also alter the course of history. These women, whose names were lost in the shadows, whose struggles went unrecognized, would leave a legacy of resistance, survival, and hope. As they moved through the night, the wind biting at their skin, the only sound they heard was the pounding of their hearts. The enemy had underestimated them. The gods had thought them weak, broken, but they were wrong. These women were warriors in their own right. Every step they took was a victory. Every inch gained was a declaration that no matter how brutal the enemy was, no matter how much they had taken from them, they could not be broken. And then, when it seemed as if all was lost, when the light of hope was nearly extinguished, something miraculous happened. The world beyond the camp began to shift. The women had become symbols of resistance, their escape a spark that would ignite the fire of freedom for others. What she discovered next would shake even her commanders. The women who had escaped, who had risked everything for freedom, had unknowingly become the catalyst for a movement that would sweep through the ranks of the oppressed. The courage they displayed, the resilience they embodied, inspired others to rise up, to fight back, and to reclaim their future. The world had underestimated the strength of these women. They thought they could break them. They thought they could silence them. But they were wrong. The women who survived the unthinkable were the ones who would teach the world what true strength looks like. The cold wind howled across the barren landscape as the women made their way through the night, their faces set in grim determination. They had no time to waste. The enemy was still hunting them, but they no longer feared the darkness. They had seen it all, and yet they had endured. Their hearts, once filled with fear, were now filled with hope, and with every step they took, they grew stronger. They were no longer just prisoners, they were free women, and nothing, not even the enemy's guns, could take that freedom away. When they finally emerged from the shadows of the camp, when the gates that had once confined them fell away, they stood tall, their bodies battered, their spirits unbroken. They had fought the war no one saw, endured the horrors no one could understand, and survived against all odds. They had broken free, and in doing so, they had shown the world that nothing could break the human spirit. Their stories were not told in the history books, but they should have been. These women, these unsung heroes, had done the impossible, and their bravery would inspire generations to come. They had shown the world what it meant to fight when everything seemed lost, what it meant to endure when hope was all but gone, and in the end, their strength would be the light that guided others through the darkness.